Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. This is Freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, this is Anna and welcome to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. And in this episode, I interview Regina Peterburgsky. Regina has been selling on Amazon actually for a little over 5 years, and she believes that the best thing to come out of it is that she's been able to change the quality of her life for her family by moving away from the heavy demands of a bricks and mortar retail business to selling physical products online. She's really created some time freedom and financial freedom, and she's currently selling on global marketplaces. And as a way of giving back to other opportunities, Regina started the Women on Amazon podcast, which she recently interviewed me on. And it's a great community, and it's there in order to sort of amplify women's voices in the e-commerce space, as well as to educate and inspire others looking to improve their lives by selling online. She's got loads of skills. She's got a funny story to share as well, and really been through some ups and downs and life battles, and she's what I call is a power girl, a power woman. So really excited about interviewing Regina. Okay, so hi Regina. I'm really excited to be interviewing you on our Freedom Podcast. And I know that we connected. I'm trying to think how long ago it was. It was around the Branded on Women event.
The Branded by Women Summit with Danny. Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Anna. How are you? Thrilled to be here.
I know.
Good to see you again virtually.
You've got a lovely light daylight background. I'm all in the dark.
Yes, well, it's morning time for me. I just got up Monday morning. Hello from the future.
Love it. So obviously as you know, your Freedom Podcast, we focus on 3 pillars: love, money, and mind. And I know from what I know about you, you're a strong power woman. You run the Women on Amazon. You've got a podcast and a group, haven't you?
That's right.
And I'd really like to sort of dive into a bit more deeper on how you kind of got to where you are today, because I know you're a single parent like myself, and it's it's probably not been easy. So
yeah, it's a bit of a journey. I'm a woman of a certain age. Let's just say I have personal summers. So it's a bit of a story, but it's interesting. Your podcast is a freedom podcast, because freedom has really been the theme of my entire life, going back as far back as I can remember.
Yeah.
We when I was a child, we emigrated. We were actually refugees from the former Soviet Union, fleeing an oppressive totalitarian regime.
Wow.
So that was, pretty much a theme for my parents, to get us out, in terms of freedom of thought, and freedom of life, really. Yeah. And so then sort of in my formative years, I grew up with my parents working 2 or 3 jobs each for the first few years. And I had a younger sister. So I was basically not only learning to speak a new language, coping with a whole new life, moving from I was in the former Soviet Union. I was born in Kiev, into little sleepy Wellington in New Zealand. It was quite a culture shock, let me tell you. And,
I bet it was.
The kids used to say, "Where are you from?" And I generally used to say, "Well, the moon," or outer space, because that's pretty much what it felt like as a child. Sort of.
Yeah. How old were you? How old were you?
I was seven.
Right, okay,
so technically English is my second language.
And you would never know, would you? You'd never know.
Well, yes, because that's one of the things that my parents did do. They were really very concerned that they wanted their children to assimilate. So when we immigrated, I went to school to learn English. My sister was 2, so she, for her, it was not an issue. But my parents were both not only working 2 and 3 jobs each, they were also going to night school to learn English. And for the first few years, the rule in our house was that we actually spoke English at home and not Russian. So, and that was very purposeful for my parents' decision, because they really didn't want their children to have any disadvantages in
Yeah,
society as they grew up with having accents, whereas a lot of my compatriots did. Now, of course, these days it's less of an issue than it was in the 70s, of course. These days we're used to hearing all sorts of different accents and it's not such a big a deal. But back then it really was something that my parents thought about very carefully, in the same way that they thought about our names. My sister and I joke that we're not, Svetlana and Ludmilla. They gave us anglicized names way back when, because they always wanted to leave. So
Okay, wow. Because my sister's actually a language teacher. She did Russian at university, and she would be like saying wow with that whole kind of speaking around her home, because her husband is from Iraq, so they speak I think that there's bilingual languages going on in their household, because I think it really helps, doesn't it? You pick up a language really quickly if you speak.
Look, and again, look, as a consequence, of course, I lost my Russian, which again, back in the 70s and 80s, my parents said, look, when is she ever going to need Russian? Like, really? And then, of course, the world changes, and there have been times where I have needed it. And, there was a time in my life where I actually spent 10 years traveling for a living. And again, this is part of my whole, flight for freedom. I literally spent 10 years taking people on holidays. I was working for actually a British company based out of London.
Wow.
And used to take people on holidays. And one of the countries that I was, funnily enough, sent to quite on a regular basis was Russia. And it's funny how, even though I didn't speak it for over 20 years, that the language is sort of like really very deep. And so when you're back in and immersed in it, it came back.
Yeah.
It came back a little bit. I couldn't have philosophical discussions, but I could get myself a locals ticket to the ballet. I had just enough that I could scam my way into a cheap ballet ticket.
So I think, how did you kind of like growing up then as maybe a little bit different, I suppose, the child feeling that difference? Did you feel like you had to kind of work twice as hard? Or... Yeah,
look, I did. I mean, kids are cruel, and with a name like Regina Peterburgsky, you can only extrapolate the horrible names that I was called. And also, of course, because my parents were working so hard, I was very much the latchkey kid with literally a key on a piece of string around my neck. And I was responsible for getting myself up in the morning and to school, and looking after my sister Ish until my parents sort of came home. I had traumatic events in my life where our grandmother came to live with us for a short time, and in fact on a Saturday night where she was looking after us, she actually had a stroke. And my parents were both at work, and I was 10, so I sort of had to sort of cope with that. So I sort of felt that I actually grew up really fast, and we didn't have a traditional childhood as such. I felt, whether it's true or not, but I felt that there was a lot of responsibility placed upon me at a very early age. So I guess from the age of about 18, 19, I decided to have my childhood, and I haven't stopped. So
exactly. So you travelled then, did you go from 18, did you go straight into this sort of travel job that you did?
No. I thought I was going to be a corporate, a titan of industry. So
like we all did.
Like we all do,
So what industry did you go into then?
Oh, look, from the age of sort of 18, from school to when I started traveling, I sort of was a bit all over the place. I started 2 different university degrees, neither of which I finished because I was too busy having fun and working. I then actually got into sales, quite sort of almost accidentally. I got into sales, and that's where I really sort of started enjoying, because at a university I enjoyed psychology, but I really hated the rats and stats, which is pretty much what university psychology study is. And when I got into direct selling and sales, I started as a telemarketer, back in the 80s, one of the first telemarketing rooms that there was here in Australia. And that's when I first started actually learning the psychology of selling. And I really enjoyed that. So I was sort of bumped around doing different sales type roles for a number of years. And there was various, you talk about love, various disastrous engagements and things involved. And I sort of, after 10 years of trying all sorts of things on for size, I thought, yeah, no, bugger this, I want to go traveling. And that's when I went traveling at a relatively old age of 27. Most Australians who take their gap year go straight after school, but I did it sort of a little bit later.
Yeah, but I bet that was a good experience though. Just, well, like you say, the freedom to be able to do that and just travel.
Yeah, look, it was a life. It wasn't a job, but it was a life. And I remember I met in my first year. I was working in Zambia, actually, at Victoria Falls and there was another more experienced tour operator with me, and I remember she sat me down back then, and when I was like young and enthusiastic and want to do everything, and she's like, Regina, just don't be like me. She was in her 40s then. She says, don't be like me, do this for a little while and then make sure to get out so you can actually have a life. And at that stage I had no idea what she was talking about, but it turned out she was right, because after a couple of years of traveling, and it was absolutely fabulous, but there was no relationships, no ties to anyone. I thought, if I ever want to have children, I'm going to have to give up that kind of freedom, that freedom to live out of a suitcase, go anywhere I want. I was making good money because I wasn't spending anything. So I would sort of hop in and out of London and, go to the most amazing places in the world and meet some awesome people. But it actually took me 2 years to actually wean myself off it. From the time I actually decided, it's like, right, it's time to stop. I actually had to wean myself off. It took me about 2 years to psychologically make that decision to go, right.
Yeah.
So so it was absolutely awesome experience, and I'd recommend it to anybody. However, it's a life, not a job. That kind of, and funnily enough, that particular woman, she's still doing it. She's now well into her 60s, and she's still, of course, not right now with COVID, but she's still in that life, and she, to this day, she says, Regina, you're right to have left, because she's like, I don't have a pension, I don't have any assets, I travel. So you can have almost too much of freedom, right?
Yeah, exactly. So as regards to, because obviously I know we were interviewed on Megla's I don't know if it was a podcast or it was just an interview, wasn't it, before the Branded by Women event?
It was a promo. It was a video podcast.
Yeah, and it was, and all the women that were on there were like single parents. So I know that being a single parent myself, I know it has its challenges just everything lies on our shoulders, doesn't it?
Yes.
And we kind of get used to it though. I don't know how you feel, but I quite like that actually. It sounds like I'm a control freak, but I quite like how it's just my opinion and my, I've got everything.
Yeah, look, I've always been a single, like I was never left holding the baby. I actually knew I was going to be a solo parent when I fell pregnant.
Yeah.
So I was able to make that, I didn't have any adjustment to make.
Exactly. Yeah.
So and I guess that's different from a lot of other single parents because they have, different circumstances. So each circumstance is different. So I don't know anything else but having the freedom to choose my daughter's school and education very much falls in line with my thinking. I don't have to argue with anybody about that. So,
but I remember when we spoke on that, I think I was really impressed how you were kind of like, you sound like you had a really good structure, because I think your mum was very close to you. I felt quite envious because my mum's like 3 hours drive. And they've my mum and dad now are like, they've gone into their like youth as they've retired. They're like partying, going to like casinos late at night, and they have a place over in Portugal, in Europe, that they spend half the time there. And I don't want to like destroy, I don't want to kind of interfere with that, because I respect their kind of freedom. So, but yeah, it sounded really good, the setup you had with
with my mum, because again, I was 42 when I had my daughter, which is sort of like on the edge. So
I think more women are having children.
Yeah, look, by the time my mother was 42, she already had a 21-year-old. So
exactly.
I always
same
sort of
with
like
my mum.
I
But
always
now
sort of
it's
look at that, and
changed.
then
It's
here
changed.
I am having a baby at 42. And at that stage, I was actually in a retail business. I had a retail store. And for the first few months, like I wasn't working full time. I did have staff, but of course, retail has been tough for quite some time. So I was trying to have as much time as I had. So, the baby used to come in with me, and mum would, pick her up, take her to the park, bring her in for breastfeeding. It was a women's clothing store. So my customers had no issue with it whatsoever. I'd be sitting in the back, breastfeeding the baby, and I'd go in, have a look around, let me know if you're interested in anything. Sort of thing. And that worked well until the baby was big enough to start pulling clothes off the racks. So we had to.
So how did you get into Amazon? Because obviously you've done the sales.
And it's purely because of the baby, because the baby started growing up, and my retail store was, I moved a couple of times. I had 2 at one stage. For the first 2 years, because I was importing clothes and manufacturing. So for the first 2 years, I would take her with me. We would go to Europe twice a year and Hong Kong twice a year. So there was quite a bit of travel with a baby. For buying trips. And then once she was 2, I had to pay full price tickets for her. So that sort of that had to sort of come down a little bit. So I was doing less traveling. And then as she was getting older, I was working more and more, and she was going into after school care and school holiday clubs, which again, when they're 3 or 4, they actually quite enjoy that. But once she was sort of getting to 5 and 6, I was sort of starting to get the, mummy, please, I don't want to go to after school care. Mummy, I don't want to go to holiday clubs and school holidays. So I was really starting to get to an issue. It's like, okay, what is freedom for me? And freedom is not working 6-7 days a week and having my child be unhappy. Exactly. So I sort of was looking, I was had been looking for opportunities, and how, when your mind is open and you're looking, the right things come along. And so I was actively looking, and I was actually, now this is a story that I've never really told publicly. Only a few people know this.
Interviews. I love these interviews.
You like this? Okay, this is a little secret. I was actively looking for a business, which was, and I knew it had to have some certain things. It had to be online. It had to be where I wasn't packing things, So I knew it had to be online. I knew that I didn't want to be doing packing and shipping out of my house. Right. I knew that the products could not be fashion oriented, because I already had experience with that, and I knew what that involved. So I had certain criteria of the type of business that I wanted. And there's a website here, and I've forgotten the name of it now, where you could actually buy existing websites and businesses, website businesses. Okay. And so I was looking, I was scrolling through that, and actually found a drop shipping adult toys product
I love it.
business, which was a drop ship website that was doing a reasonable turnover for what I was looking for. And it was an auction. I thought, okay, well, I reckon I could do that. It fit all the criteria. It was drop ship, so I didn't have to handle the products, so to speak. It was non-fashion items, so it was like products that had a all year round, and that don't go out of fashion, so to speak. It didn't have. I didn't have.
There's a demand for them as well.
Yep, high demand.
I know that niche has been really high sales in this current COVID.
Recently, yeah. But I'm talking sort of 5.5, 6 years ago. About 5.5 years ago. So I knew it was a growth area. So I started bidding on this website. And then at the same time, I started getting emails about a training program about Amazon FBA, which again, in Australia 5 years ago, we didn't really know, like we knew Amazon existed, but the whole idea of selling stuff on Amazon as a third-party seller was a brand new concept to me that I had not come across. And funnily enough, this was like the 3rd time in a couple of years that I'd seen this particular program. But because my mind was now more open, I thought, okay, let's have a look. So these two things were happening at the same time. I was seeing the promotion for this training course, and at the same time I was bidding on this adult toys business.
Yeah, I love it.
And they were both sort of coming to a head at about the same time. So I sort of made this mental decision. It's like, okay, I've only got that one amount of money, and it was going to be about the same. The training program and the cost to buy this website was about the same. So that was the amount of money that I set aside. I thought, whichever one works is the one that I'll go with.
Yeah.
And so I was actually outbid for the for the website, and so I thought, right, my decision's been made. So I went and I bought the Amazon training.
Yeah.
And was really thrilled with that. And then funnily enough, within 24 hours, the seller of that website got in touch with me and said, oh, the person who won the bid, because I was only outbid by one bidder, has pulled out. Would you like to have it at the price that you bid? And was like, yeah, no, too late.
Too late. Yeah, so, I made the decision, gone elsewhere.
So I could have been, isn't it that sliding doors
yeah, I was
moment?
just about to say, it's like a sliding doors moment, isn't it? You could have been
sliding doors moment.
Living in Amsterdam right now.
Who knows where that would have taken me. So I did the training, followed the bouncing ball, so to speak, released my first product. And again, when I was doing that training, because I already had experience in retail, I already dealt with China. I already understood branding. So there was a lot of the business stuff of the Amazon business was not new to me. For me, it was more the channel of selling on Amazon and how that worked was what was new, and learning about that as a sales channel, and the SEO of Amazon and the ranking factors. So all of that stuff was what I had to learn. Yeah. So I didn't go in with
dealing with Amazon as well, probably.
Well, yeah. That's we're still learning that shit, aren't we? That's daily.
I think there's people listening to this, because I think there's a lot of businesses out there right now who are probably going through that same shift of, a bricks and mortar business. I mean, it's been happening for years, hasn't it? Where people, the high street has been a challenge, but over this last sort of 4 or 5 months,
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Like I literally, so I was one of the, call it lucky, call it whatever you want to call it, using everything that I knew and putting it into Amazon. I did very, very well, very fast. Yeah. And because I already had my retail, that cash flow from my retail store actually helped set up my Amazon business, because actually that's something that people don't talk about, is if you're successful, you actually need to have access to quite a bit of cash to be able to grow. And that's something that none of these Lambo training, people tell you. It's like, hey, go sit on a beach, drive your Lambo, live in a hammock. It's like, well, hang on a minute. If you're going to sell $1 million worth of product, where are you going to find 200 grand to have in the warehouses? Right?
Yeah, I see a lot of people that like have one product, then they disappear.
Yeah.
Because they get just straight away, they get into that cash flow thing. I
mean, there's a lot of that. So because I had my retail business, I was able to cash flow that. And then it didn't take long for then the Amazon business to be supporting the retail business. So a little over 12 months from when I launched my first Amazon product, I literally closed the doors to a retail store that I'd had for 10 years, and I walked away. Wow. And so for the last 4 years now, coming up to end of August, it's almost exactly my 4-year anniversary from being a purely online Amazon seller. And in that time, my daughter and I have had a lot more quality time together, although at the moment probably more quality time than either of us would like, given that we're in lockdown. But, we've traveled, we've had holidays. I don't have the issue, if I want to, go away for a week and just check my emails once a day or once every couple of days. Exactly. That's perfectly fine. My business ticks along. There's, I don't even have emails on my phone. I actually even switched off the Amazon seller app off my phone 6 months ago. I tell you what, that's been so good for my mental health. So,
I think,
so
this is
it's
why
given
I
me the
feel.
freedom to do that.
I think sometimes now I think about children because everything's so digital and all these different apps, and they're
Yeah.
growing up in that, whereas we didn't, did we, so much? And
No, that's
we
right.
can see that
Yeah.
you can see as an adult it takes over. And
Yeah.
I've done similar things where I've just like deleted certain apps because it's
Yeah.
just constantly can be contacted, or it's just distraction, isn't it? And you can't focus. Whereas the youths of today are kind of brought up in that environment. I think that's why
Yeah.
there's like a lot of mental health things going on.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's funny. I was actually having a talk to our school counsellor. My daughter, I was telling you before we got on the recording, was, she's not coping with this. We're in a very strict second lockdown here in Melbourne, and it really is affecting the kids. And the school counsellor's sort of advice at this stage was, while we're in the lockdown, is to not worry, is just to let them run. He basically said now is not the time to start banning online. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, as long as it's safe and there's nothing
yeah,
dangerous going on,
exactly.
obviously. I mean, she's not on any social media and stuff, but yeah, he's like, now's not the time to really crack down on it. Just to wait until we're back
Yeah,
into
out of
whatever the new normal is, and then reconsider that. But it's tough.
Yeah. So I know obviously you run your Women on Amazon group, don't you? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, that's really interesting. So about 18 months or so ago, or in fact almost 2 years ago, I had this brilliant idea to write a book. And because the thing is there are so many people that are selling on Amazon that are doing really, really well, really, really quietly, up in their dining room tables or in their lounge rooms, that we don't hear about them. The ones we hear, the ones that are on the stages, that sort of like rah, here's my Lambo, are not really the ones that are doing the serious work. So I had this brilliant idea that I was going to write a book and interview some of the people that I had met at events that were just quietly doing the work and doing really, really well. So I started doing interviews for that. And then, fast forward 6 months, the book was nowhere near, but I had a whole lot of conversations that I had with people. And so I thought, well, I'm actually a better speaker than I am a writer. So, so my book that was going to be 13 Amazing Secrets of Amazon Sellers became the podcast. And I sort of went with the Women on Amazon because, again, 18 months ago, now like there's a lot more of us, which is amazing. But back then, every Amazon podcast was very testosterone driven. And it was like, hey, follow me and you can make $100 grand in your first 2 weeks. Woohoo, actualize this and freedom that and 3-hour work week, whatever. And again, so when, and also, and I don't know whether you've done this, so I was going to a lot of events for Amazon when we could go to events, and 40 to 50% of the audience of these events were women, and yet 95% of the people speaking at these events were men.
You were going to say that. It's what we've talked about with Danny, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why my podcast was really, the aim was to amplify women's voices in the space, because there are so many amazing women that are quietly working away, supporting their families, changing their lives. So many I've spoken to have been able to retire their husbands.
Yeah, exactly.
From whatever jobs they've been doing. No, seriously, more than one of the people that I've interviewed have actually said, I've managed to retire my husband. That's what I've done. Yeah. And so I started that podcast, almost 18 months ago, and I've built a little Facebook community around it. And it's not exclusively women, of course. There's I'm not exclusive. So I've interviewed men as well. Mostly the men I interview are ones that are service providers. But in terms of telling stories, I will go to speak to women. And often there's partnerships when I've reached out to a couple, and the men will say, oh no, I just spend the money and she does all the work, so interview her.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing for the last 18 months, as well as running my Amazon business. It's a way of me, again, giving back, helping other women change their lives, like my life has been changed through being able to sell stuff on Amazon. And
So
I'd like to be able to encourage other women and men to build businesses so they can have the freedom, whatever that means to them in their lives, whether it's financial or travel. Yeah.
So how do people find the podcast and the group?
Oh, it's very easy. The podcast is available across all of the, Apple, Spotify, etc. It's just women on Amazon. It's women plural, women on Amazon. And the website is womenonamazon.com, and the Facebook group is Women on Amazon. And it's a group. And my email is Regina@womenonamazon.
So all the guys and girls who are listening to this, who want to check it out, just look for Women on Amazon on all of these platforms, all these socials.
Yeah. I'm not on Insta. That's for the young ones. I am on Facebook. I also my little area of speciality has been launching using chatbots.
Yes,
And
of
so-
course, yeah. Because I was really
Yes.
curious about that. Tell me a bit about that, because I was curious about that, because that's something I've been dabbling in but not fully got into, and it's something that I suppose it's like there's all these different things on all the time and different time things. 'Cause my thing is like I do like e-commerce sites. I'm always focused on Facebook marketing, Instagram marketing, and things like that. But yeah, I keep dabbling with it, and I need to just go all in.
Look, the thing is, I don't know if you've come across Ryan Daniel Moran.
Yeah.
He's sort of pulled a little bit out of Amazon these days. But when I started, he was, probably a year or so ahead, and he was putting out some amazing content. And he and pretty much everybody, all the gurus out there say the same thing. Which, when it comes to the socials, if you're building a brand and you're driving outside traffic to Amazon, just pick one. You can't do Facebook and Instagram and Google ads and everything.
Exactly. This is what,
pick one. So for me, because with my brand, my audience is on Facebook, and so that's what I've been focusing on. And Facebook has got Facebook Messenger, and when all of these launch services started getting a little bit dodgy, or not dodgy, but Amazon started sort of pinging them a little while ago, because I've used, I'm a big believer in actually properly launching your product. And over the years, I've used all sorts of different launch services while they've been compliant, and now it's harder to. And so, for the last 2 years, I've been playing with doing my own launches using chatbots. And I've spent a lot of time and energy in there. And there's a lot out there on chatbots. You can pay people to do it for you. You can get, very sophisticated chatbots with all sorts of bells and whistles. And what I've found is that people know that they should do them, but they don't, because it looks complicated.
Yeah, I've just done the basics with kind of doing things around like my Shopify sites and and when I'm doing Facebook ads where it's got the option to be able to message and things like that. But I haven't kind of done a whole sequence
so what I do is
all that kind of stuff.
So I use ManyChat, and at the moment I'm running just a coupon giveaway. So not a full rebate for proper launching at the moment, in terms of compliance, where you're not going to get dinged, is rebate giveaways. So that's where you basically take people from a Facebook ad through a ManyChat flow that invites the people to buy your product at full price, and then you send them either a gift card or a PayPal rebate for their purchase. So in Amazon's point of view, it's a full price buy. And if you either use a super URL or ideally a search find buy, where you invite the customer to actually go to Amazon, look for your product and find it, and then buy it using a particular keyword, it's a very, very powerful way to rank product.
I've done the same, but with just like landing pages and things like that. But I think it's definitely something I need to focus more on. But I totally agree with you about the like focus on one marketing method, because it's always been me. But since Facebook kind of bought out Instagram, you can duplicate your ads, can't you, on Instagram?
You can. That's right. So because there's so much out there, but people are not using it. I was at an event in January this year. Again, the last event I was able to go to, where I met somebody who encouraged me to put together. We were talking about this, and she said, "Well, why don't you do a training?" I said, "Well, there's already really good trainings out there on this." But when I looked at the trainings, they're all several $1,000s of training, plus lots of time to actually do the training and implement it. And so what I've done is I've put together like just literally what I call it's a mini course. It's cheap and cheerful. It's less than an hour total to do.
Okay, cool.
It's you just sort of copy my flows and plug in your own products, and I talk you through how to do that so you can have a rebate bot up and running in a couple of hours. So it's got no bells and whistles, no integrations.
Which is good.
You know, it's basically stripped down, really, really basic, which is the opposite of what everyone else is doing. They're like, buy this, it's got this, that, and the other. I'm like, yeah, no. Buy this because it's got none of that, right?
Exactly. But you've stripped it down to what people need.
I've stripped it down to what's needed and what works, and that you can do easily without having to be a tech genius. And
how do people find out about that? Is that all in the Women on Amazon group?
See, now you've got me. I don't have the link up, people can.
Yeah, you can.
I'll send you the link. Yeah, I'll send you the link, and I'll send you a little coupon code as well that you can publish. That people can have a look at that.
Yeah, I'll put that in the comments and the show comments and the
beautiful
stuff as well. So brilliant.
And then people can contact me and I can send them the details on that. Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, brilliant. Thanks for all of your time, because I know I've been kind of wanting to interview you because I see you as this strong power, resilient woman, and now I know from your story, because I remember, you know, in this interview before I get people on here, we asked you a few questions, and one of them was, "What have been your biggest challenge?" And you were like, "All of them."
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's true. But I've always been a big proponent of, you know, it's like decide on what you want and also why you want it. You know, it's always the why. You know, when I was traveling the world, my why was I want to see the world. And then my why changed to, well, I actually want to have a child and a family. So I was like, well, I need to change my life. And I've always been big on, if you don't like where your life is, change it. It's up to you, you know?
Yeah. I think sometimes it is difficult getting the balance being a woman, because you want your career, you want to be ambitious, you want to have children. It's all about balance, isn't it? And I find that
balance, and the thing is, you can have it all, but not necessarily all at once, right?
Exactly. But I see men kind of like go all in on things, and there's definitely more women that go all in, but I think a lot of women kind of tiptoe around on or on the fence with different things, and they're analysing, because obviously they've got this balance that they're thinking about, and it's from interviewing other women and, you know, or just knowing other kind of really successful women. Those are the women that have gone all in, or are very clear on their why, or want to, you know.
And the thing is if you look at our society historically, you know, men are never asked the questions about, well, you know, when you're in a job interview, how many men are asked, well, what happens if your child gets sick?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They never ask those sorts of questions, because men are not expected to be the caregiver, and yet women are expected to be the caregiver. And so there's this conscious and unconscious bias of women in business that we need to sort of work past. You know, my sister and I have always joked that, you know, we actually need a wife, you know, to do all those things.
Sometimes we don't help ourselves, because I remember when I first started kind of going online, I put myself out there as a mumpreneur, and I look back on that and I think, why did I do that? I was an entrepreneur.
That's right.
It was like there was this debate. I think it was just because it was like, oh, this is a cool word, but really I was putting myself down with it all, or even like female entrepreneurs. It's just like we're entrepreneurs.
Just an entrepreneur. That's right. Whether you're a male or a female. I mean, there are certain things, again, especially those of us who are sole parents, that have, you know, different things that we, you know, I always sort of joke, it feels like I'm juggling octopuses, or whatever is the plural of octopi. I feel like I'm juggling octopi, you know, with my life, but it is what it is, but I love it, and it's great. And then you sort of go, well, you know, my daughter and I, we're planning a year away, although again, you know, we'll see what happens in the next couple of years, but 2022 is supposed to be a year of traveling the world.
Fab,
It may be pushed out by a year or two. But that's been my why for the last 5 years, because it's like, well, I need to have, the cash, the resources, and the freedom to be able to do that. So,
yeah, brilliant. So I always ask everybody at the end, what does freedom mean to you? And I think you've referenced it a few times.
It's really the ability to make choices. I think when it comes down to it, freedom is the ability to make the choices that you want to make. Because often people go, oh, I would do this if I didn't have to do that. So, if you don't have, that whatever it is around your foot holding you back, whether it's financial or personal, freedom is very much that ability to choose where you want to live, where you want to educate your children, where you want to work. It's a choice.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Oh, well, really appreciate your time. Everybody that's listening, go and check out Regina on Women on Amazon, and I'll make sure that I put all the details of her chatbot stuff in the comment section. But really, really appreciate your time. It's been really great.
Thank you. It's been fun. It's been fun. And as I said, you're the first one to get my real origin story.
The adult toy section. I love it. Yeah. So brilliant. Thanks. It's been some good fun. Really appreciate your time. Thanks, Regina.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast. Hey.